Yep.
So we are officially at time and ready to get started, everybody. Welcome. I'm Chris Woolley, and we've got another episode of Let's Develop today with Ella Carlson. We're going to be doing creativity, your own personal rainbow. So this is what we're looking at today. So for those of you that are new, this is Let's Develop. It's a web series from American Color Imaging. Basically, this is a show for photographers. We track down some of the coolest photographers around and we ask them to share some information with us. We have a new episode every 2 weeks. You can register for them at acilab.com/let's-develop. There's already a whole bunch of future webinars up there already. But I do want to give a shout out to American Color Imaging for making this possible. I just love how much they support our industry. If you have missed last week's episode or any of the previous episodes, they are live on ACI's website. So you can go to acilab.com/let's-develop, including last episode with Dennis Hammond about your journey as a landscape photographer. So this is a webinar format, which means that we can see your questions and interact live with you. So as we're going along, if you do have a question, please type it into chat. If you look up at the very, very top of the screen, there's a chat little bubble that has a question mark in it. If you click that one and type your question in there, it'll flag it as a question so that I don't miss it. If it's relevant to what's happening, I will interrupt Ella and ask her that question for you. If it's something that's not relevant to what we're immediately going over, we'll save it and we'll have some Q&A at the very, very end of this program. We do only have an hour together and Ella's got a ton of information as well as some goodies for us. I do also have a really, really cool special from ACI for you guys and some prizes from ACI. So that'll be at the very, very end of the program. So now we can start to get in with our program. We've got Ella Carlson. She's a master photographic craftsman, a CPP, a fellow, and an educational associate with ASP. She's got a Master of Fine Arts degree from the New Hampshire Institute of Art. She's won the Grand Imaging Award from PPA. She's got a 2020 GIA in the illustrative commercial category. She's been a PPA Diamond photographer for like 5 times. She's been on the cover of Photoshop Users Magazine, the PPA magazine, and she's even got a book about fine art Photoshop. So welcome, Ella. I'm excited to learn from you as well as everybody else in the chat. It's filling up with people that are just excited to learn about creativity today. So the
Excellent.
floor is officially yours.
All right. We're talking about creativity tonight. Let me go back to, here we go. All right. First thing I want to say is we have a few special circumstances over the last year and a half where it can be a little bit harder to be creative, but we'll talk about that a little bit later too, how to get past some of those blocks. I want to first talk about what creativity is not. And creativity is not something that you either have or don't have. A lot of people believe they're creative or they're just not creative. And I hear it all the time, and it's just not the case. We're all creative to some degrees. It might be in different ways. You might be creative in figuring out how to make a lot of money. You may be creative in figuring out how to arrange things, but there's always some sense of creativity in what you do, as far as I'm concerned, at least. That's my belief. The refusal to be creative is self-will and counter to our true nature. That's a quote by Julia Cameron, who has some great books out on art. And I'm going to give you a reading list later. You can do a screenshot and look them up. Creativity isn't waiting for lightning bolts or dreams to inspire you. I don't remember my dreams. A lot of people, people ask me the questions. 2 most popular questions for me are, what do you dream about and what drugs do you take? I don't take, I'm not into psychedelic drugs, and I don't remember my dreams. Everything I do is just working. So inspiration. Oh, I love this quote by Chuck Close. Inspiration is for amateurs. The rest of us show up and get to work. That's so true. If you read George Carlin's autobiography, he got up every day and went into a room in his house that was designated as his office and worked from 9 to 5 every weekday, just like a regular job writing his comedy. It just didn't come to him out of the blue. He worked at it. So this is also a really important quote to me, and I have no idea who said it, but writing is in the wrist. I do some writing as well as photography. And if you sit down and try and pre-visualize an entire book when you start, or an entire work, it's going to daunt you. It's going to just be too much. So just start, do something, sit down and look, and you'll see as I go on that that's exactly how I work. And creativity is not easy. It's work. And like I just said, you sit down and you work. It's also not something you often find in a vacuum, or at least most of us don't. A lot of times what I will do is bounce things off of other friends. I have some really good friends who are really good at giving me feedback that is constructive, but not so gentle it doesn't help. You don't want somebody who's just all the time patting you on the head and saying, oh, it's wonderful. You want somebody that really looks at something. And if you get together with other creative people, then you really will find yourself being more creative. There's a saying in graphic design that 1 + 1 = 3, meaning what you can do plus what I can do is more than each of us can do separately if we combine our efforts. That's not bad news. It's all good. It means we can all boost our creativity. So what is creativity? Creativity is taking something that exists, using it in some way that is new or unique. None of us are reinventing an apple. None of us are reinventing anything. We're taking something that's already out there somehow and using it to create a new iteration of something. And that's not limited to art. It can be anywhere. And just like our other muscles, creativity needs exercise to get stronger. So this is kind of how my process works. Gather, and I'm pointing it out to you as well, talking to you, everybody out there, gather your material, whatever you think you might need to start, gather it together. Work consistently. Digest what you've got. Sit down and look at it. When I start to create one of my crazy creatures, it's not something that I pre-visualize. I'll sit there and look at it and go, what do I see? And then I start pulling things out of it. And one of the most important questions to ask is, what if? What if this were made out of water? What if this were backlit? What if is a hugely important question. So take a break often, get away from the work, collaborate with other people, work some more, collaborate again, polish, rinse, and repeat. That's kind of my recipe for my workflow. And I think it really works for me. This was a start file that ended up being a loan image for me. For those of you who are not PPA immersed, a loan image is other than winning a GIA, which there are only 10 in each category, and I think there are 12 categories total for GIAs. So other than that, the 5,000 to 6,000 people that enter can either have not merit, or loan. And now they've changed that now to image excellence. So a loan image is the highest you can get without going to a GIA. So we were down in Florida taking pictures midday. I live in Massachusetts, so January in Massachusetts is gray, colorless. We've got lots of snow probably, or muddy snow, but we don't have flowers outside. So we were in Florida, St. Augustine, and I took this picture of a rose pretty much at high noon. And my challenge was to make it into a loan image, or an image that would be competition worthy. And this is the result. So it's just a matter of looking at something and challenging yourself to say, okay, how can I make this look different? How can I expand on whatever material I have? And in this case, it was taking the details that were there and bringing them out, like the little tiny veins in the texture of the rose, and enhancing those, and then pulling it apart actually, and putting it all together again at different opacities. So that was one of the ways that I work was with a challenge. I think there are really kind of four challenges: a serious challenge. IPC, the International Photographic Competition, any kind of a competition, is a serious challenge. Friendly challenges, where a friend says to me, for instance, here's a picture of a white fish in a bathroom sink, make an image that's worthy of winning a competition. Self challenges, like the rose that I just showed you, where you take something that shouldn't be an award winning image and make it into something that's more interesting and starts to make people look at a rose maybe a little bit differently. And working in series, I think that's a huge, huge thing to do, because when you start to work in a series, you get the low hanging fruit first, the easy stuff, the cliche stuff. When you work in a series long enough, you start to really dig in and find areas where you can really expand what your belief is about it, what you want to do, what you think you can do. You have to start really digging a lot more deeply. So I really recommend working in series. This is the creation of one of my aliens. Those are my husband's size 14 feet there. And it all started with a glass of iced tea, and the ice cubes, to me, when I mirrored it, looked like baby's legs. So I did this. Actually, Al Parker's on the line. I did this at his son's wedding in Texas a few years ago, and pulled together, various images from what I was shooting around there, smoothed up my husband's feet, shrunk them down, made them cute little baby feet instead, and then pull together whatever I could pull together. I'm going to fast forward
This
because
is so cool. I love seeing this. It's behind the
and
curtain.
then, yeah, exactly. And then I decided it needed different eyes because it's an alien baby. I wanted the eyes to go in different directions. So I made eyes from scratch. I have a video on that on YouTube. You can search me out and look for Ella Carlson eyes, and you'll find that, how to do that from scratch. I don't keep any secrets. I've been teaching for 22 years at University of Massachusetts Lowell, so I'm terrible at keeping secrets, and that's a benefit to my students. As you can see, there's a lot going on there around the baby. I decided it was too cluttered, so I took a picture of an olive oil bottle at the wedding. We were still at the wedding when I did that, or the week of the wedding, and put the baby in there instead. And this is for the top of the container. Reshaped it with the warp tool in Photoshop. Love Photoshop. And put the fish back in. We took pictures of fish at a little horticultural place. And then I have pictures of some smoke and added in some bubbles. And that is pretty much the finished result of that one. And that was the one that ended up on Professional Photographer magazine, the
I remember
cover.
when that came out, I was just blown away. I'm like, whoa, what is going on here?
And this one is a friendly challenge. This was my friend Mark Sweeney sent me this picture of burnt wood with water on it, dewdrops. And he said, make an alien out of that. So this is the cat. That's the burnt wood, just kind of turned gold. And I was also starting to experiment a lot with fur and how to make fur. So I decided to put the two together. I liked the glasses. I wanted the distortion. When you're making aliens, it's kind of funny because you're doing almost the opposite of what you do when you do portraiture. When you make portraiture, you want everything to look as perfect and wonderful as possible. You wouldn't want that distortion of the eyeballs and the glasses with a portrait. When you're making aliens, that all makes them have personality and makes them look more real. So I'm very purposefully going in the very opposite direction of classic portraiture with my aliens to a great extent. Although I'm still observing all those wonderful rules that we have in PPA about impact and composition and consistent lighting and all of that good stuff that we learn that makes our photography better. You can see the little guy down here. The kitten was made from a squirrel, just pulled the fur out, changed the color, and added lots of fur there. So that is kitten cat with some stuff going on there to fine tune it.
So if you've done a series, put what you're if you've ever done a series in the chat here. I'm curious to see who else has gone and done part of a series like what you have. Maybe not the aliens,
Absolutely.
but other things. Share with us.
Probably not aliens,
Yeah.
but yeah, definitely. A series or a photo essay where you're really getting into a subject, those are great ways to exercise your photographic muscles. This was a challenge to myself. I wanted to make a multi-eyed alien, an alien that had multi-eyes, many eyes in each eyeball. So how do you do that? I figured I'd make it in hexagonal shape and put them all together, do a little shading so they look dimensional, turn it into a sphere in Photoshop with the warp tool and just shading. And then this is looking down a plastic cup. The ribs on the plastic cup become my alien's hair. And then she has fur, and that is my alien with multi eyes.
That is fantastic.
Thank
I
you.
love seeing
Thank
what you
you.
started with and then where you end up with.
Yeah. And this guy I wanted to make an alien that was made out of transparent materials. So I had a gallery show up in northern New Hampshire, and they had these beautiful little Votus. And I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. Well, that's what's making up what he's leaning on and making up his arms as well. And then I had photographed some splashes with a friend, talk about that a little bit later, and put them all together to make Crown Royal on the rocks. So that's Crown Royal on the rocks, which happens to be my husband's favorite drink. I think we've all taken pictures of flowers. How do you make flowers look different? How do you make them come up a notch or two above a standard flower picture? So I took flowers at one point. They were part of a series that I did, and I photographed flowers the way you always photograph flowers. And then I decided, what can I do to a flower to enhance it? Well, some of the things I did were to bake it, dissect it, take it, turn it into a sketch, or put little mouse legs on it. Those are actually mouse legs. A mouse died for my art in our driveway, and I was not going to waste that. So I took pictures of it and put them on a flower. This is a deep fat fried rose, and they turn all translucent and kind of vivid. It's really interesting when you start looking. And this is what I mean by working in series. You really have to start thinking way outside the box. What can I do to a flower to make it look different? I can take it apart and I can put a Photoshop vine up it. So what do you do when you hit an artist's block, which is like a writer's block? And for me, usually it's because I'm stressed. I need a deadline. Heaven forbid you give me a project and don't give me a deadline. I might get it done before I die, but I wouldn't guarantee it.
I think we've all been there.
I need a deadline. Or sometimes you're freaking out because a deadline is too soon. You're feeling like you can't get it done. The worst thing is that bad child inner voice that we all hear, you can't do this, you aren't talented enough, oh, you aren't meant to do this, you just don't have it in you. We've all had those voices kind of instilled in us over the years, maybe very unintentionally, but somehow that's all happened to pretty much everybody. You have to tell that voice to shut up because it's not right and it's just stopping you from doing really amazing things. Sometimes there's a need for more challenge, and sometimes you're just in need of a brain vacation. Just take some time and do something totally different. I also believe strongly in cross-pollination. That means not all of my art is photographic. When I got my MFA, I did a TA stunt, a teacher's assistant to the book artist who was teaching a really cool book class. And I made all these handmade books when I was doing it. I also write. So those are a couple of different forms of my art. Even when I'm doing photography, one of the things that I work on, aside from all my PPA kind of aimed art, is I was working on a graphic novel, and I'm still working on it. And there's some of the images from that. So don't pigeonhole yourself into one little finite area. Let yourself explore different areas because you never know what will happen. This is the book, the graphic novel, a draft of it that I presented during my MFA program. And those pages actually flip. They're on like curtain holders that flip like a book. They're about 2 feet wide and about 4.5 feet high. And people can walk in there and really literally immerse themselves in that book. And it was really interesting because the dean of the program went through it, and when he came out into the hallway to talk about it with me, he couldn't talk. He was in tears. So it really touched him that way. And I think part of that was it was a very different presentation. When I was doing the book art, my husband loves to do metal work. So I told him what I wanted to do with metal and the book art. And I went out and found this piece of wood. He made the metal according to what I told him, and I put it all together in this sculpture, which won a three-dimensional art show. And I'm not a sculptor by any stretch, but I was playing with this whole idea and I'm really enjoying it. And it won honorable mention in a book exhibit, actually, too. So it was very successful. It was really fun. This was a cabinet of curiosities kind of thing that I did, where under each of those magnifying domes, there was a little movie that played, and it was morphing when I was doing the tea project, which I'll talk about in a minute. That went from one tea image to another, morphing. And so they were all little videos, and my computer was underneath there with the monitor facing up. So it was really, people would stand there and watch for 10, 15, 20 minutes. Even little kids were sitting there watching. It was really fascinating to see. When you're a creative person, failure isn't an option, it's a necessity. If you're not failing, you're not pushing yourself. You're doing the easy stuff. You need to fail. All right. So don't punish yourself for failing. Enjoy the fact that you're stretching. Really, really think about it. The tea project, which I mentioned, that was my MFA thesis project. I processed over 2,000 images in the span of about a year. It resulted in about 1,960 failures, but it also resulted in one IPC loan album. It also resulted in an honorable mention in a museum show. It got me into 3 gallery exhibitions, including a solo show, actually 2 solo shows. I need to update this. And it became the entry point to my alien project. So that to me is a massive success, even though there were 1,960 failures. And not everything worked out. Yeah, it's just
stuff. That's
really exactly. Cool. Yeah.
Keep building.
Any comments or questions so far that I need to address?
No, we've got people saying they've got their own projects and you've inspired them to work on things like with your alien project and just continuing to go. And Michael saying failure's not such a bad thing. It's how you learn.
Exactly. Yeah. And if you're failing, it means you're stretching, you're trying harder. That's great.
I think we all need to hear that. It's easy to get caught up in your head.
Yeah. And don't, a lot of us stop. I've taught so many people about digital painting. And what happens, I see people stopping before they get to the point where they're succeeding. And I always have a point where I'm making an image, almost always, where I'm looking at something going, oh, this is a mess. But if I keep going and get past that, like the little alien baby, and it was a mess. The bottle had so many things in it, but I didn't stop. I kept going. I decided what the problem was, fixed it, and went on with it. And it became one of my more successful images. Never stop learning. This is one of the ways to maximize your efforts. One of the things I do is keep an inspiration folder. I read books. I go to classes and meetings. I watch tutorials. I love collaborating with friends and having meetups to try new things. And I love also getting out of my comfort zone. So I mentioned inspiration folder. I have this on every single computer I've ever had for the last 20 years plus, is a folder where if I see something online or I see a magazine, I'll take a picture of it or screenshot it and put it in my inspiration folder. It's not so I can copy it, but it's more so I can go to the inspiration folder and go, how did they do that? Let me figure that out. And maybe I can't figure it out, but maybe on the process of trying to figure it out, I learned something new. It's really helpful. This is where you want to take a screenshot if you want a reading list. These are some really good books on being creative and good art books. So I'll give everybody a second there to screenshot that if they want. And there's several Julia Cameron books in there. There's Elizabeth Gilbert's Creative Living Beyond Fear. Twyla Tharp's book is very good, Creative Habit. Lots of good books there. Maximizing your efforts. Again, never stop learning. PPA, Professional Photographers of America, anybody who's a member knows they have lots of learning opportunities. Creative Live is online and open to anybody. It's a subscription. YouTube, Pix Imperfect, PTC, Photoshop training channel, that is. Phlearn, PHLEARN. Those are all great resources. When I have to learn something new in Photoshop because I have to teach it like the next week, these are the people I go to, along with Julianne Cost. Yeah, Julianne Cost, jcost.com, and she has the blog as well. She's a Photoshop evangelist. She has all the latest updates.
She's awesome. Amazing.
She's
educator.
amazing. She's phenomenal. And if you ever have a chance to hear her in person, if you haven't, grab it, because she's so entertaining and so brilliant. In-person seminars, online meetings, one-on-one lessons, collaboration, so many ways to keep learning. Get together with a group of friends and try new things. The 6 of us at the top of this picture, that's Nylora Bruley, who was nominated for GIA several times in previous years. That's Alison Miniter next to me. I'm in the plaid. Patty Axford, Lori West, and Jane Walsh, all PPA members. And we get together every once in a while and experiment. And one day we got together and decided to make brushes out of splashes and smoke. And you saw the smoke in the alien baby one. I've used that smoke so many times. It was really fun. We shot in the morning. My studio was a mess. It was smoky. It was splashed with water. It was great. And then in the afternoon, we sat down and I showed them how to make brushes out of everything. So those are terrific. That was such a great day to do, and such a great learning experience for all of us in certain ways. I love this quote by Yoda: do or do not, there is no try. So just get in there and do it. Do something in art you've never done before, and regularly do something you think you can't do. So if you think you can't do it, try it. You might figure out there's a way around it, or figure out a way to learn it, or find something on YouTube. This is an escalator going down to the subway in Washington, D.C., DuPont Circle. And this is what I made out of it. This is a Hannibal Teddy is the name of this one. And that's made out of all those little lights coming down. And the skeleton was, I went to Germany with one of my best friends, and they had a skeleton in the museum. So I got an iPhone picture of it, and that's part of Hannibal Teddy's lore right now. This is using an atrium roof at Imaging USA in Nashville to make a girl, smartest girl in the alien class. This was in Atlanta in Imaging USA. And I looked at that and went, oh, I've always wanted to make an alien that was lit from within. So let's make that a skirt for an alien, and maybe a dress for her daughter as well. So that was from the lamp in the light fixture in the hotel. That's a book that was I handmade, and I made a whole bunch of them, gave them out as Christmas gifts one year. You're going to fail, just don't stop when you do. That's key. It really is, because it may be temporary. So this is the alien mother and her daughter, and this started with a vase and that light fixture I just showed you, and mirroring. And then I put the heart in the middle, kind of lit that a little bit strongly because I wanted that to be part of the story. And there's the dress I made. Now I just have to make the person, right? And I had these pictures from the Sandwich Glass Museum, and those are what I made her arms and legs out of. That's that green glass, but just the colors shifted. And you can see I don't know what I'm doing with the head yet. I'm just kind of putting a shape in there to keep it
give it something.
Give it something to put hair on at that point. These brushes, these are going to be available to you. This is what I'm giving you as a bonus for being here and enjoying my company tonight. This is one of the Kyle Webster brushes. I've also got my own brushes in there that you can use and play with. That brush is so much fun to work with. Just he's got all kinds of hair brushes. If you don't know, when you're in Photoshop, if you click on the brushes and go to get more brushes with a little gear on the side top right corner, if you're logged into the Adobe site, then you can get brushes every season. They have a new pack of brushes from Kyle Webster, and he's got a ton of them there that are from previous years. And there's lots of fun brushes. And one of the ones that I had the most fun with was a bunch of his hair brushes. So this is, if you watch her legs and her arms and stuff, things are gradually getting more delineated and detailed, because this is
put into chat for everybody. You'll see it looks like a little present, and it says Ella's brushes next to it. If you click that, then you're able to download her brushes.
Yep. And have fun with them. And feel free to
There's like 100 of them that you have in there. So make sure you're clicking on Ella's brushes so you can do it. If you're not at a spot where you can get it, I'm also sending out the link via email as well.
Excellent. Cool. So that was the first day of school on the planet Luminata, because Luminata is another word for lighting. So series, I talked about working in a series, and my first series with dancers, and this started 14 years ago. I was pretty new to PPA at that point. And of course, you do the dancers that are jumping up in the air and they're beautifully posed, and the hands are so beautifully. That's the advantage of working with dancers, is they know how to use their body and their hands. But then you go beyond that, and what else can you do? So I've got this dancer who is jumping, and decided I wanted her to be metamorphosing between granite cracking apart and vines. So that was an early loan image for me. This is called Lost Soul. And this was another self-challenge. How do I hollow out the legs and make them look like there's nothing in there, like she's a mannequin? Those are her real legs, but just Photoshopped to look like they're hollowed out. This was actually, I found this great 7-foot tall bird cage in a junk shop, and it had a pheasant in it, a stuffed pheasant. So I got wings too, which is great. Love to have those. This was my first GIA nomination, and this is from Al's territory, Albuquerque, one of the balloons from the Balloon Fiesta. And those little strings holding the balloon to the girl are all created in Photoshop. There's a big fat texture on there. Probably wouldn't do that quite so heavy now, but this was, like I said, early on. And that's one of my dancers. Another one that's never been in competition, but I still like it. And that's playing with a flood filter. Flamingpear.com, I believe, is the website on that. And you just create water out of nothing with the flood filter. And this was caught up in the moment. And if you remember the flower with the Photoshop vines around it, same basic theory here. Those vines are created in Photoshop just using Photoshop layer styles to create the dimension that you see and to create the texture. And this was playing with a mirrored image. This is actually exactly the same, her face, but flipped. So it's not both sides. I didn't use both sides of her face. I flipped it and mirrored the image, and then unmirrored it by making one eye black and putting a feather in her mouth. And this is called One Hell of an Angel. So that was kind of fun. Then the flower project, which I talked about a little bit earlier, this was literally taking each petal apart in Photoshop, putting it on a different layer. I did make an action to kind of make things go a little bit easier with various things that I was doing to everything. But I went in there and kind of hand painted all those little textures into the petals, and then put it back together again with the outer petals being at about 60% opacity on a black background, and the inner going right to the center gradually to 100% opacity. And it gives it that kind of inner glow. It's really interesting because it's the same technique on all of these flowers with a little bit of variation, but they all come out so different. That's exactly the same technique, but it looks so different. And this ended up being the only album ever entered into the Master Artist category. I actually finished the album and then found out they didn't have an album album category in Master Artist. And this is the only year they put it in. They decided no one else was crazy enough to enter an album and artist. So, but they did merit it. So, what do you do with your new camera when it's January in New England? You have bronchitis and can't get out of the house for a few weeks. So, this was when I got my Nikon D800E, and I sat at the window in my dining room coughing and taking pictures of birds on the bird feeder and put that together in an album. So, these are all about 6 weeks worth of watching the window, coughing, and taking pictures of birds and squirrels and all the different kinds of things. Even when a bird flew into the window and died, that's part of the story of their lives too. So I included that. So that was a loan album for PPA. And this was the Tea Project, which was very important to me because that led into the aliens, which was kind of where I'm situated at the moment. But just mirrored images of tea in a teapot, iced tea, any kind of iteration of tea, including like washing out the teapot. And I put them together. Like I said, I processed 2,000 images this way and then picked out the ones I liked the best, shifting colors, kind of pulling out details in all of these. And then this was how I kind of got the permission from the gallery to paint the walls black, as long as I promised to repaint them back the original color. That's the exhibit, along with that cabinet of curiosities with the videos in it. And it was really beautiful because the ceiling was black and it made my exhibit look great, but it also gave more prominence to the space over to the right where the other person was. It really, really made her work look better too. So it worked out really great for both of us. But these are some of the finished images from those. And like I said, it ended up being a loan album for PPA as well. This was the transition piece. This one is called Reconsiderations, #1. And when I looked at this, if you look at this, I'd be interested. Put what you see in the chat as you're looking at this.
This will be fun. Go ahead and type that out right now. What do you see when you look at this image?
What do you see? Because this is kind of a Rorschach thing going on.
An orchid, evil face.
Yep.
A
yeah.
fish,
I mean, it's so
face,
many.
A strange face, watermelon, a type of god, an alien.
Yeah, like isn't it fantastic? Yeah.
Alien embryo. A squirrel.
That's so true. Everybody saw something different when I started showing it, but I saw a little guy. Yeah, I saw a little guy with hands together down there by his belly, a little kind of collar, and then like a fairly long helmet that goes up and kind of wings coming off of it. And I started enhancing some of those details, which led to the aliens. So just kind of mirroring things because we are mirrored. Both sides of our face, if we're lucky, are pretty symmetrical. So when you start mirroring things, you start to see faces in them, which is really fascinating for me. So I just went in there and kind of enhanced what I saw and started making eyes and putting them in there. Remember I mentioned the white fish in the bathroom sink? My friend Allison Miniter texted me low-res images from Disney World of a white fish in a bathroom sink and said, make a loan image out of this. And I did. And this is the alien. She's made out of a fabric texture. And there's the smoke from the day we shot with my friends, the smoke, and made brushes out of it. And this was a challenge to make hair that looked like glass, like it was made out of fiberglass. This alien's made out of 2 wine glasses.
Bet you that was a fun one to do.
It was. They're all fun. This was a Christmas cactus made into a goat. I was at a creativity workshop. I was one of the teachers there, and the organizers gave everybody, including the teachers, a box of detritus, just junk, like styrofoam balls, paper clips, a few feathers, pipe cleaners, that kind of thing. And they gave us a glue gun and all that stuff and said, make something out of it. Well, I photographed it all, put it together in Photoshop over the weekend and made crazy legs here. She's made out of the antique train in Albuquerque. There's an antique train that they're restoring, and that is the top of her headpiece, and her costume is all made from the metal on the side of the train. Even the bubbles are made from the grommets in the train, and the little bubble she's holding included. Take a guess. Can you guys guess what this is? The start file with this one was? I'm interested to see if anyone knows or can take a guess.
Yeah, put it in the chat if you got an idea.
Yeah, put it in the chat. I'll give you
a dog.
Nope.
Chocolate.
Nope.
Oh,
good guess.
Coming in. A goat, sand trails, deer antlers, leaves, bones.
Sand trails. Close. That one's close. This is the pattern that the waves make at the edge of the ocean in the sea. That's what the antlers are. So I went through, this gives you an idea of how obsessive I can be, and pulled out all the sand in between the places where the sand was raised and made the antlers out of that. And then the little guy below is also created from just the fur that I drew, and his eyes are created from the sand as well. I like to make the eyes out of the same materials that I make the alien out of usually. So like this guy's eyes are made from the rocks that I made, or the wood that I made him out of. So this is old Rocky.
Do you use a Wacom tablet?
I do, absolutely. Yeah. I have a Wacom tablet that travels with me, and I have one that stays home because it's too big to really travel well. But yeah, I couldn't do what I do without a Wacom. There's just no way. Helen Yancey says drawing and painting without a tablet is like trying to paint with a stone or paint with a rock. And she's absolutely right. You can't really do it well. This guy's starting file was a bowl of yogurt with chia seeds in it. So, and this was from the tea project. If you really think back, you might remember that the head is actually from the teapot. And these are the suds when I washed the teapot out in the top of the teapot. And I just took pieces of it and made the beak. It actually had those shaped eye holes there almost pre my making it. So I just cut them out and made eyes. And this was one of my first times making fur. So I was kind of adding and bouncing this off Mark Sweeney. He says, not enough, keep going. It's like, that's what I mean by good friends. It looks good, but got to keep going. It's not enough. So she's made out of peeling paint. That's peeling paint for her skin. And that's one of Kyle Webster's brushes to make her hair. He's got all these tight curly brushes and fur brushes and stuff. Antique car bumper. And this was another kind of self-challenge to think, what would an eye look like if an alien only had one eye? How would it close? How would the mechanics be? Because it wouldn't look like our eyes. Our eyes are not symmetrical within themselves. They're symmetrical side to side, but the eye itself is very definitely got a different shape near the nose than it does at the edge of the face. So this eye would have to be symmetrical, more than likely from side to side, the eye itself. And there's another piece of the smoke that we photographed that day. So I love the smoke. I had such fun with that. This is made from the texture of a sculpture when we were visiting Al and Ronnie in Albuquerque. We went to Santa Fe, my husband and I, and visited some art places. And this was just the texture of a sculpture that started this one. Exhibiting. If you're interested in exhibiting, it's like everything else in business. It is a business. Network. I can't stress how important networking is. Reach out, whoever you know, get yourself out there, go to exhibits and get to know what people are showing. Call for Entry is a website, callforentry.org. You can go on that. It's hugely competitive. It's really hard to get accepted, but every once in a while you will. Gallery and exhibit portals, check out what you've got locally for your galleries. Show your work when you get a chance, and I'll talk about that in a minute as well. Museums don't care as much about selling as galleries, so they're not as interested in pretty. They're not going to be as on top of PPA kind of art as galleries are. Galleries are more interested in pretty because that's your average consumer goes in there. But contemporary museums are often more anti-pretty and they're about message. And then ASP, American Society of Photographers, if you're a member of that, we've got the museum project going where they are reaching out to museums to show our work. This is an example of reaching out. A friend, Allison Miniter, and I went to Photoshop World about 3 years ago, I believe. And one of the things you can do if you go to Photoshop World is enter their Guru Awards contest. Well, this guy ended up being, I entered like a half a dozen images, and this guy ended up being a finalist in the Guru Awards. So he was exhibited down there, big print. You'll see how big in a minute. And it was shown. And then at the end, they told us we could take it home. Now, this is Allison. I wasn't going to take it because we were flying and I figured I'd never get it home in one piece. She wanted it. So I said, if you get it home, it's yours. So she went to a FedEx store, got some cardboard, packaged it all up. They even opened it in security and checked it out, pulled it out and put it back in. She's got it hanging framed in her house now without a scratch on it. Amazing that it just went there. But because I entered the Guru Awards, they contacted me shortly after Photoshop World and said, we want to feature you in Photoshop Magazine. So there I am on the cover of Photoshop Magazine, even though I didn't win the Guru Awards.
So cool.
And there's the article about me. So yeah, it was very cool. I was very happy to do that. And that opens it up for questions and comments.
Yay. We do have a few questions. So if you do have a question for Ella, go ahead and type it in the chat now. That way she can answer it. And maybe by the time you're done typing, we'll get to your question. Question from Alan. How do you pick your subjects for a specific series?
For a specific series, it's just kind of whatever appears to me. Well, like the birds, I was very limited in what I could do. So because I couldn't go out, I had birds coming to our feeder. The dancers, they're pretty, they're lovely. They're so cliche for photographers, but I went there anyway.
You put your own twist on it.
Yeah. And
did
then
that come from like your inspiration folder, or did you just kind of come up with that? Or
I came up with it because I love the way dancers look, and I love the fact that they're so graceful. And I went around to a whole bunch of different dance schools in my area and said, look, I'll trade a print for an hour's worth of posing for my studio, and mom can come along. It's not anything weird or crazy. And, I had them jumping around for 45 minutes, half an hour, and taking pictures the whole time. And then I'd come in and take pictures of their hands and their feet because I knew I was probably going to change those around and make them in shape differently. And so I had one specific dance school that really got on top of that, and they sent me tons of dancers. So I had more than I could possibly even use most of the time,
so
which
it's all
was
about
great.
that networking then, huh?
Exactly. Networking is huge. Yeah, that's how I've gotten my exhibits, by people seeing things that I've done or just me reaching out and being in touch with other people. Yep.
How long, question from Paul, how long do you sit and draw?
Well, when I was doing the Alien series, I was very intent on getting my fellowship from ASP, which is an advanced degree from American Society of Photographers. So I challenged myself to do one alien each week during my semester when I was working with my UMass students. And so I would say I can sit at the computer for 16 hours straight and just be
Does your back kill you from that?
No, not pretty good at ergonomics here, but I don't do that usually, but I can if I'm really obsessing about something. Most of the time, each one of those aliens took me about a week of my spare time, probably about 20 to 30 hours a week for each one. And it varies, I've got a lot of different things going on, so I get pulled here and there. but that's usually about how much time it takes. So there's that initial phase where you start to make it and it starts coming together. And then, you spend maybe 5, 6, 7 hours working on something and you think this is cool. You wake up the next morning and go, oh yeah, this needs work.
You mean I'm not
You
the only
start
one that
again.
does that?
Oh, no, 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 no. Not at all. Not at all. And then you sit at, you work on it for a week and put it away for two and come back to it, go, oh yeah, it still needs work. So yeah, there's a lot of polishing that needs to be done.
Got a question from Jamie wanting to know which Wacom tablet do you use?
I have the Intuos Pro and the Intuos 3. I have a really old Wacom. I'm not super into bells and whistles. As long as it's got pressure sensitivity, I'm happy. All the dials and all that stuff, I barely pay attention to those. So I could use a fairly old Wacom tablet and be perfectly happy as long as it has pressure sensitivity. So, but I have the large Wacom Intuos 3. I believe it's the Intuos 3. They do not respond well if you spill a cup of tea on them, which I found out
You like tea,
unfortunately.
we know.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
And
Do you have a favorite type
so
of
I'm
tea?
very careful. Yeah. What was that?
Do you have a favorite type of tea?
Chai tea with almond creamer in it and a little sweetener. That's my treat. I love it. So, yeah.
So I've got some stuff to give away, and I want to make sure that we're doing that before we run out of time. So if you do have any last minute questions for Ella, go ahead and type them into chat. And while you guys are typing that, we're going to give away some stuff and do some cool things. Again, thank you to American Color Imaging for putting on this webinar. They do have a special for everybody that's here. It's 25% off of one order. And that's if you use the ACI Flex system. So in the chat, there's now a little offer that's just popped up on there. If you click that, you'll see that we've got the special that's on there. You have to use that code, and that code will be emailed out to you. But 25% off. That's crazy good. And this offer does last a little bit longer than what their normal ones do. So make sure you're saving that or checking your email that's coming up.
That's
Okay.
a great deal.
Oh, it is. It's awesome. Yeah, order some art prints
Yeah,
in or client
that's
work. Hey,
right.
we're getting to that family
They,
portrait season now.
yeah, they
So,
do metal prints too as well, which I love. I love the metal prints.
oh, they're my favorite too. I think they're a signature one. So up first, we've got an AC High Rocks mug. So this mug is going to go to. I love this little thing. Spin, spin, spin. We'll see who's going to win. And Dwight, congratulations.
Hey, Dwight.
You've got the mug. Send me your mailing address, and we will get that out to you. So we've got a mug going out to you. Up next, we've got an ACI Rocks t-shirt. So I'll need to know your size on this winner, but let's see who won the t-shirt. And spin, spin, spin. And who's it going to be? Susan. Make sure you're reaching out to me so I can get that to you. And then our next prize that we've got, and oh, it doesn't like my slide that's on here for some reason. Let's see if I can manually get there. There we go. We've got a 16 by 20 metal print. This is your artwork, not Ella's, that's going on it. But we've got a 16 by 20 metal. Absolutely amazing finish. And the metal winner is... And it is Adele. And in your email, you had Pixie Dust as part of your name, so we didn't have a last name on that. Pretty sure you might be from Washington. So on there, congratulations on that. Do want to let you know that we do have some more webinars that are coming up. Here's a quick sneak peek at some of the next programs that are going on. We've got next Brian Welsh, and that's going to be on, in, and through, where we're looking at marketing, sales, and giving back. And then at the end of this month, I'm going to be doing a special one where we're going over price lists. So kind of learning the psychology of that, when you should use what numbers, how to increase your sales via your price lists. I got Erica Lane Harvey doing Some Days Code for Never, Shannon Squires, The Art of Children's Portraiture, and Tony Harriman Johnson, The Heart of an Artist. So really, really cool programs that are coming up. So make sure that you're checking your emails on that one because registration is live on all of these. Also want to let you know that I'm going to be doing a series at PhotoWorks Georgia on eclectic creativity. We'll be looking at doing headshots and pinups and composites. You can learn more information about that at Georgia's PPA's website, gppa.com. And of course, if you do have ideas for future episodes, things that you'd like to see on here, speakers, please make sure that you are reaching out to me so that I can track them down. Because, yeah, it's way more fun if we have your participation on this and we all get to work together on it. And it's looking like we don't have a ton of questions here, just mostly comments of people saying how amazing you are, Ella, for sharing all of this and thanking you for the brushes. Saying that thank you for exposing us to the process that you're here and all the different worlds that you're kind of doing with this one, and love the brushes. Let's see, just lots of really cool stuff coming through about people loving you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. That's a great speaker list you've got coming up.
Oh, it's going to be so much fun. I'm having a blast doing these, and it's just really cool getting to connect and seeing everybody's different viewpoints and ways that they think and tick, and seeing how common and similar we all are in terms of our passion for our craft and giving back. So thank you so very much, Ella, for joining us today. This was a really, really cool program.
Thank you. You're very welcome.
I know it's definitely got my creative douches flowing, and based on the comments here, you've inspired quite a few other people as well.
Excellent. You're all welcome to email me what your creations are after this.
Uh-oh, you're going to get flooded on there. And there is an email that's going to go out here in a couple hours on this one that will have the link to download those brushes, as well as a link where you can watch the replay in case maybe, like Yeti, you missed the very beginning of this one, joined late, want to go back and review some of this. We can get that. So just know that you have all of this information. Check your email because it is coming up onto you. So just a flood of people saying thank you and that they love you, Ella. So with that, everybody, we're going to call it a night. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Chris.